Welcome back to Moonlit West, the place where heartfelt and meaningful stories are told under the gentle glow of the moon. Today, we continue the journey of soft sunlight on the tree, a story that has touched the hearts of many with its themes of childhood memories, love, and growth. If you enjoy this content, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos. Your support is the greatest motivation for Moonlit West to keep bringing you incredible stories. So what are we waiting for? Let's dive into the next chapter of Soft Sunlight on the Tree, where past and present intertwine, bringing us to the pivotal decisions and meaningful choices of Ben and Emily. In Chapter 3, Adulthood and Old Memories, time had passed. 10 years had gone by in the blink of an eye. The small town where Ben and Emily had grown up now wore a new facade. The wildflower field where they had once played was now an empty lot, ready for new homes to be built. The familiar dusty red roads had been paved, bringing the sounds of traffic and the hurried rhythm of modern life. Yet amidst all these changes, the memory oak tree remained, weathered and worn, a silent witness to time. Ben Harper had become a promising young artist. He lived in a small apartment on the outskirts of the city where the morning light streamed through a large window, illuminating the unfinished canvases scattered around his studio. Despite having created many acclaimed pieces, Ben always returned to one subject: the wildflower field and the memory oak tree. In each painting, the image of Emily was ever present, her bright eyes, radiant smile, and fleeting silhouette like a dream he couldn't forget. One day, Ben heard the news. Emily Carter, now a renowned photojournalist, was returning to town for a special project about her hometown. This project was not just a professional opportunity. It was also a way for Emily to reconnect with the place where she had grown up. Her name had graced the pages of major magazines, but behind the glamour were the pressures of urban life. She had married a fellow journalist, but their marriage seemed far from perfect. Articles about her often featured a photo. Her blue eyes, once filled with dreams of faraway horizons, now carried a hint of sadness, as if she were searching for something lost. That afternoon, Ben returned to the memory oak tree. While everything else seemed to have changed, the tree stood frozen in time, yet it carried a lonely air that tugged at his heart. The wildflower field of their childhood had been replaced by empty lots and barbed wire fences. Sunlight filtered through the thinning leaves, casting shimmering patterns on the ground like fragments of broken memories. A light breeze carried the faint scent of damp earth after the rain, evoking the summers of the past. Ben touched the rough bark of the tree, his fingers tracing the old carvings. Each line and crack held a story, a promise that now only he could remember. Closing his eyes, he allowed the past to flood back. The sound of Emily's laughter, the sparkle in her eyes as she wore a crown of wildflowers, and the moments they had shared under the shade of this tree. His heart ached with a mix of longing and pain. He wondered if anything remained from those years besides his paintings and fading memories. Standing in the fading sunlight, Ben felt the emptiness of the present, where the echoes of the past were the only thing anchoring him to his childhood. Ben, a familiar voice called from behind, soft but enough to pull him from his reverie. He turned and saw Emily standing there, as if she had stepped out of his memories. Her long hair flowed freely, shimmering in the twilight, each strand gently swaying in the breeze. Her deep blue eyes met his, tinged with sorrow, yet retaining the gentle warmth they always had. She looked smaller than he remembered, but her presence still radiated strength and an unchanging charm. The golden sunlight bathed her figure, making everything else around them fade into the background. Emily, beautiful beyond words, stood amidst the nostalgic scene. Emily, Ben whispered her name, his voice catching in his throat as if it had been buried within him for years and was now finally set free. They stood there, facing each other, neither speaking, letting the moment stretch as if time had stopped between two souls overwhelmed with emotion. At last, Emily stepped forward, each step light and deliberate, as though she feared breaking the fragile moment. Her hand gently touched the tree's bark, her fingers gliding over the old carvings, as if reading the stories etched into them. "I didn't think this place would still be here," she said, her voice barely a whisper, but brimming with emotion. Her blue eyes, now filled with nostalgia, gazed at the tree. A breeze ruffled her hair, blending with the golden glow of the setting sun. Those eyes looked at Ben, carrying both sadness and kindness, as if asking whether the memories they had shared still lingered in his heart. Ben smiled, a bittersweet but genuine smile. "It's always been here, Emily, just like our memories." His heart ached with 1,000 emotions, caught between the joy of seeing her again and the regret of not being able to turn back time. "It's always been here, like our memories," Ben repeated, his voice steady but filled with unspoken feelings as he looked at her with eyes full of longing. They sat down under the tree, talking like two old friends reunited after many years apart. Emily shared stories about her travels, the places she had been, but her voice betrayed a weariness she couldn't hide. Ben listened intently, occasionally nodding, sometimes letting out a soft laugh, but his gaze never left her. Finally, Ben quietly opened his bag and pulled out a rolled-up painting, tightly wrapped in dark velvet fabric. He gently unrolled the painting, revealing a work he had spent months perfecting. No longer was it the image of the wildflower field and the oak tree from childhood. This painting blended memories and reality. The field was now a barren stretch of land, but at its center, the oak tree stood tall, old yet powerful. Beneath its canopy, a girl with long, flowing hair stood with her back turned, sunlight casting a halo around her figure. Emily stared at the painting, her eyes wide and tearful. "Is this me?" she whispered, her hands gently touching each brushstroke as if she wanted to feel herself through Ben's eyes and heart. "It's not just you," Ben replied, his voice thick with emotion. This is everything we had, everything we lost. I couldn't stop painting it, painting you." Emily lowered her head, a smile fleeting across her lips, but it was tinged with sadness. "You always know how to make everything more beautiful, Ben, even though we're not the same as we once were." They sat there, the darkness slowly creeping in, but neither of them hurried to leave. The painting lay between them, like a bridge connecting old memories with the present, filled with longing. In that moment, both Ben and Emily understood that no matter how much time passed, what they had once shared would always remain, preserved in every brushstroke, in every memory beneath the oak tree. As the sunlight faded, leaving behind a sky in soft shades of orange and purple, both of them realized that even as time moved on, a part of them would always stay under the oak tree, where the memories never faded. Chapter 4. Decisions and Choices. The evening after their meeting at the oak tree, Ben couldn't sleep. He sat by the window in his small room, the desk lamp casting light over the unfinished painting on the easel. Memories of Emily rushed back like waves, and for the first time in years, he allowed himself to face the deepest emotions in his heart. The feelings he had kept hidden for so long now flared up like a quiet flame. The next morning, Ben decided to meet Emily to talk more. He found her at a small cafe in town. Emily was sitting at a table near the window, a coffee cup in hand, but her eyes were gazing outside as if searching for something. When Ben approached, she looked up and smiled, a gentle smile with a hint of weariness. After a few pleasantries, they began to talk about old times. Emily shared that by chance she had found a letter Ben had written but never sent. "Do you remember that letter, Ben? You dropped it under the tree the day I was about to leave." Ben froze, his eyes wide. He rummaged through his memories and suddenly recalled the scrawled words he had written to express his feelings, but had never dared to give her. Emily continued, her voice softening. "I read it, and I knew you had feelings for me, but at the time, I didn't know what to do. I was afraid that if I said anything, we would lose everything, even our friendship." Ben was silent, his heart heavy as if burdened with a stone, but at the same time oddly relieved. He smiled, a sad yet peaceful smile. "I guess you were right, Emily. Maybe love isn't always about possession, but about holding on to the beautiful moments in our hearts." They continued talking about their current lives. Emily admitted that life in the city wasn't what she had dreamed of. The busy work, the endless travels, and the marriage she wasn't sure she had chosen correctly. "There are times when I wonder if I'm chasing something that doesn't really belong to me," she said, her gaze distant as she looked out at the small road. Ben looked at her, a feeling he couldn't name rising within him. He wanted to keep her here, to say that this small town could be where she truly belonged. But he didn't speak because he understood that the decision had to be hers. As the evening set in, they walked back to the oak tree together. Beneath its ancient branches, Emily gently touched the carvings from years ago. "I have to decide, Ben," stay or go back to the old life. Ben was silent, but then he spoke softly. Emily, whatever you choose, I just want you to be happy. Even if you go far away, I believe a part of you will always be here, under this tree, in our memories. Emily turned to look at him, her green eyes brimming with tears, as if even the slightest thing could make them fall. She didn't answer, but in that moment, Ben knew they both understood each other. She took out a small box from her bag. Inside were childhood keepsakes, a dried flower crown, a pebble, and an old photo of the two of them under the oak tree. I've kept these all these years, Emily said. They're the most precious things I have. They sat together until nightfall, letting the gentle breeze carry the scent of old days. In the dim light of the star-filled sky, Emily whispered almost to herself, maybe what I'm looking for isn't new horizons, but what I left behind here. Ben said nothing, silently watching her, his heart filled with a small hope that she would choose to stay. But he knew, no matter what she decided, the memory of her would always be the most beautiful part of his heart, like the gentle sunlight filtering through the oak tree's leaves. Chapter 5. An Open Ending. The next morning, soft golden sunlight filtered through the sparse leaves of the commemorative oak tree. Ben stood beneath its shade, his hand resting on the rough bark with the carvings that had faded over time. His heart was heavy, yet peaceful. Last night, he and Emily had talked for hours, but in the end, he knew she would have to make the choice for herself. Emily appeared from a distance, her small figure resolute. Her long, flowing hair shimmered in the morning light, and in her deep green eyes, Ben saw the inner conflict. She stopped in front of him, holding the small box containing childhood mementos. Ben, she said, her voice light like a whispering breeze. You're the only one who ever made me feel like I was coming home. Ben smiled, but that smile was tinged with sadness. Then remember that home will always be here, Emily, no matter where you choose to go. They stood there, not speaking another word. Emily turned and walked away, her shoulders straight, but each step seemed to carry the weight of the world. Ben watched her until she disappeared from view, his eyes never leaving the horizon. This time, he didn't call her back. He understood that love isn't always about holding on, but sometimes about letting go so the one you love can be free. When he was alone, Ben sat down under the oak tree, gently placing his hands on the box that Emily had left behind. Inside, along with the old mementos, was a postcard she had promised to send from the big city. The back of the postcard had only a few lines. I haven't forgotten, and I never will. Ben softly closed his eyes, letting the emotions wash over him, and in that moment, he felt a profound sense of peace. He stood up, returned to his small room, and sat before the easel. From the first brushstrokes, a new painting began to take shape. A vast wildflower field, the old oak tree standing tall in the sky, and two faint figures bathed in gentle sunlight. Ben's final painting wasn't just a piece of art. It was a silent farewell to the past, to an unfulfilled love, For him, those memories didn't need to be held on to in reality, for they had become an eternal part of his soul. Final message: love doesn't always have to result in being together. Some of the most beautiful emotions lie within nostalgia and incomplete memories. Time changes everything, but memories are eternal. The small things in the past can be the driving force behind our growth. Choosing a life. Sometimes happiness isn't about holding on to someone, but about finding yourself. Thank you for taking the time to follow and listen to the story Soft Sunlight on the Tree on the Moonlit West channel. We hope that Ben and Emily's journey has brought you deep emotions and meaningful reflections. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to support the channel and never miss our next stories. If you have something to share, feel free to leave a comment below. We're always ready to listen and improve our content to bring you even more complete videos. Now turn off the lights, lie down, and let the gentle emotions from the story guide you into a peaceful sleep. Wishing you a good night, stay healthy, and see you in the next video.